Welcome back. In this video, we're going to talk about retainers. Right now, I'm on this monthly advertising retainers page. And as you can see, this is a monthly retainer. It started back in January, and the client is paying us $5,000 a month. Now, Ravetree will automatically generate each new instance of a retainer. Okay, in this case, monthly. And as you can see, we're in the November retainer. We have about 12 days remaining. You'll be able to see the budget for the retainer. And one thing I want to point out is that we are choosing to roll over unused or overused amounts for the retainer. This happens to be a pretty large amount because we're not actually using this retainer. This is just for our demo account. But nevertheless, if let's just say you only give your client $4,000 worth of work one month, then the next month, if you've selected rollover, it would give them $6,000. The budget would be $6,000 down here. Likewise, let's say that you give them $6,000 one month. Okay, so you gave them more than what they're paying. If rollover selected, you could have it where the budget for the next instance would only be $4,000. Okay. Now, as you log time or expenses against the retainer, that would show up here, and then you would be able to see your balance underneath. Okay. For this retainer, we are choosing to monitor both monetary value and hours. Okay, you could choose to track your retainer by one or the other, but we're monitoring both. And if we scroll down on the page, you'll see these are some of the other parameters that we specified for this retainer. But let's look at what you have to do to actually create a retainer. Okay, so I'm going to click on the navigator, and we're going to go to the main retainers page. You could create a retainer directly from an account page, but we'll just do it from here. So I'm going to click on the retainer button. And then we get the form for setting up your retainer. You give it a title. Then you select the account the retainer is for. And let's just say Apple. Invoice to. This is the person that would receive an invoice if you choose to enable the invoice feature. You can have it where Ravetree will automatically create a new invoice for each instance of the retainer. Now, whether or not you're actually using invoicing, you still have to select the invoice to. This is going to be a contact associated with this account. The owner is the person who's managing the retainer. It will put you in by default, but of course you can change it. The retainer, you can set it to billable or non-billable. In this section, include is where we can specify what we want to include with the retainer. Amount, hours, and if you hover over these, they'll give you some explanations. One important one is starting balance. This is particularly useful if you're first coming over to Ravetree from another system where you already have a retainer that's in progress. You could enter in the starting balance for that retainer by selecting this. Labor and expenses, this is where we're monitoring both, as we saw on the previous screen. The retainer amount is what the client is paying you each month. Let's say $5,000. The start date for the retainer, and we could just say maybe November 1st is when it starts. The frequency, in this case monthly. Of course, you could have it where it's quarterly or any other option that you need. Instances, what this means, here let's just go back and use easy math here. So if this is a monthly retainer, then this retainer is good for a year. You could have it unlimited. Track by, this is where you're monitoring either amount of money or hours. The retainer rate is set to dynamic, however you could have it at a fixed rate, and what this would mean is, let's just put it at say $100, then every hour logged against this retainer would be at this fixed rate. It seems like most people have it set to dynamic, in which case the rate pulls from either the your employee's work role rate or their personal rate. There's lots of ways to set up billable rates. A charge for overage. Now what this does, if it's selected, is if you give this person more than $5,000 worth of work, you could charge them for that additional amount, and whatever you enter here, let's just say $50, this is going to be added to whatever the billable rate is. Now, because we selected dynamic, it's hard to say exactly what that rate would be. There might be lots of different rates, but let's just go back to having it at a fixed rate. And if it is $100 an hour and you're charging for overages, what this means is that they're going to be charged $150 an hour for any hour above and beyond that amount that the retainer is for. Okay, generate invoices, turn that on if you want Ravetree to automatically generate the invoice. Rollover, get that turned on. You can attach files to your retainer, add tags, details. Now if we look down here, this is where you can link retainers to project or work item templates. And this really makes them very useful, especially when you have situations where a client is always getting maybe the same, let's say 3 projects every month. You're doing the same things for them. So you would probably want to create some templates around those. And you just select the templates from this list. And then for each new instance of the retainer, Ravetree will automatically build out these projects for you and create all the tasks and subtasks that may be associated with those projects, and also it will notify the assignees. So that way you don't have to go in and keep doing it each instance of that retainer.